The journey of Michael in New York. New York never sleeps. At any hour. The city glows with towering skyscrapers, giant billboards, the sound of car horns and hurried footsteps. But inside a small apartment on the 10th floor, Michael sat by the window, gazing down at the sea of lights with only darkness inside him. The coffee on the table had long gone cold. His notebook lay open with scattered words, unfinished and fragmented. Midnight had come, but sleep felt far away. From the avenue below came the honking of taxis, music from a nearby bar, laughter spilling into the night. The city kept living, breathing, spinning. But Michael felt stuck in a shattered moment. Just months earlier, Michael thought himself lucky. He had a stable job in Manhattan, a best friend he trusted like a brother, and dreams burning bright. They had shared cheap pizza in Brooklyn, spent long nights on rooftops talking about ambitions too big for their age. They swore never to betray each other. Yet, everything collapsed faster than he could imagine. The truth came like a blow to the chest. The friend he trusted most had chosen another path, leaving behind betrayal without explanation. What Michael had once believed in crumbled in an instant. He didn't just lose a friend. He lost a part of himself. In the beginning, he tried to pretend nothing had changed. He still went to work, nodded at colleagues, forced a smile when someone told a joke. But back in his apartment, when the door shut behind him, everything caved in. He collapsed onto the sofa, turned on the TV for background noise, but stared blankly without seeing. At night, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling while questions echoed endlessly. Where did I go wrong? Was I not enough? Why did this happen? No answer came. Outside, the city roared with life, but inside Michael was an empty space. He walked through Times Square on a blaze of massive screens, surrounded by tourists shouting and laughing. Yet he felt invisible. In the world's busiest place, he felt the loneliest. There was a small coffee shop on Fifth Avenue where Michael began spending hours. It wasn't crowded, didn't play loud music, only smelled of roasted beans under warm yellow light. The owner, an older woman with a kind smile, never asked questions. Michael sat in the corner, opened his notebook, and wrote. At first, the pages filled with anger, blame, and longing. He wrote about old memories, about betrayal, about questions with no answers. But gradually, writing became a way of speaking to himself. The pages never betrayed him. They listened, accepting every messy line, every scattered thought. One afternoon, while scribbling, Michael drifted back to childhood. He and his friend once dreamed of starting a company, traveling the world, proving they could make it. They had played basketball on crack courts, laughed until tears fell over silly jokes. Those memories now felt like an old film, beautiful yet painful. But Michael realized memories aren't meant to be erased. They become scars, reminders of both joy and lessons. One rainy night, he sheltered under a store awning. Beside him stood a man clutching a paper bag. They struck up a conversation. The man admitted he had just lost his job, yet still smiled. New York tough man, he said, voice raspy. But it's also the place that teaches you how to stand back up. Everyone falls, but no one stays down forever. Those simple words struck Michael. Perhaps he wasn't alone in carrying wounds. Pain is part life, and kindness can come from strangers who share a roof from rain. From then on, Michael started walking in Central Park each morning. Amid the city's chaos, the park offered rare quiet. Leaves rustled. Birds sang. Joggers passed with steady breath. Michael walked slowly, inhaling deeply, exhaling fully. For the first time in months, he felt alive, not just existing. Each step pulled him farther from the darkness. One evening, he heard a guitar on the avenue. A young street musician was singing an old Bob Dylan song. The raw chords, the worn voice, cut through the rush of people. Michael stood still, letting the music seep into him. For the first time in months, he smiled, a genuine smile. He dropped a few coins into the guitar case and realized, sometimes it's the smallest things that heal us. That night, Michael opened his notebook again. But this time, he didn't write about pain. He wrote about dreams. He wanted to learn photography. He wanted to travel. He wanted to start a blog, to share his thoughts. Dreams once shattered were being rewritten, not for someone else, but for himself. Days later, while rereading old angry pages, Michael suddenly laughed. He saw how much space he had given pain. But anger never punished betrayal. It only imprisoned him. Forgiveness, he realized, wasn't for betrayer. It was for himself, to set him free. And then one morning, as sunlight spilled through the window, Michael woke feeling lighter. Birds chirped. The smell of fresh coffee filled his kitchen. Nothing extraordinary, but it felt new. He smiled. Peace was returning. At work, Michael still faced tight deadlines and demanding clients at the small advertising firm in Manhattan. But now, he no longer saw it as a burden, but as practice. Each completed project, however small, became a victory. Colleagues noticed his optimism. Michael realized he wasn't working just to survive, but to grow. One day on the subway platform, he sat beside an elderly man with a worn book. They chatted. The man, once a philosophy professor, now retired, said, "Patience, my boy. Patience is power. In New York, everyone rushes, but the ones who last are the ones who know how to wait." Michael nodded. Patience, something he had always lacked, became his new lesson. He found himself drawn to the New York Public Library. Among stone walls and towering shelves, he spent hours with books on philosophy, psychology, novels. They taught him that wounds weren't endings, but beginnings of a new kind of strength. One night, leaving the library, he saw a homeless man holding an old harmonica. Michael dropped a few dollars. The man lifted tired eyes, yet shining. "Don't pity me," he said. "Life isn't about what we own. Sometimes it's about what we still have inside." Michael went home and wrote, "Strength isn't about never falling. It's about rising again even when nothing remains." The next day on the subway, he noticed strangers, the weary student, the dozing worker, the couple holding hands, the busker playing violin. Everyone carried a story. Everyone carried wounds. And suddenly, he felt less alone. That night, he stood before the mirror in his apartment. The dark circles remained, but the eyes had changed. He whispered, "I'm still here. I didn't collapse. I've survived the worst days." For the first time, he truly believed it. The following morning, he laced his shoes and ran. At first only a few hundred meters, then a mile, then more. Each breath, each step released the weight inside. Sweat soaked his shirt, but he felt lighter. Running became his ritual, not just for health, but as proof. He was moving forward. And then one afternoon, fate placed him face to face with a friend who betrayed him. On a crowded street, they froze. The friend gave an awkward smile, ready to speak. But Michael only smiled back. No anger, no longing for apology, only lightness. He turned and walked away. The city that evening had never looked more beautiful. After that unexpected encounter, Michael returned home and reflected. Months ago, he would have demanded answers. But now, silence was enough. Silence was no longer weakness. It was freedom. One morning, he crossed the Brooklyn Bridge at dawn, breathing the chill of the East River, watching sunlight wash over the skyline. For the first time, he felt New York lifting him instead of weighing him down. It was the beginning of a new chapter. At the library, he found a faded book titled The Art of Letting Go. One line stayed with him. "When we let go, we don't lose. We simply open our hands to receive something new." He smiled, realizing letting go was no longer terrifying. It was liberating. Soon after, he joined a small support circle. At first he hesitated, but when he shared his story, he felt lighter. Healing, he realized, comes not from hiding pain, but from speaking aloud and being heard. New friends brought new laughter. One night, around a table of pizza and clumsy jokes, Michael laughed freely. The sound surprised him. It had been so long since laughter felt real. His wounds were closing. Encouraged, he began writing a blog. His words, once private, reached strangers. Letters poured in from people thanking him. His pain had transformed into something greater, a bridge for others. Autumn came again, and in Central Park's blaze of red and gold, Michael realized endings were not tragedies, only transitions. He wrote a letter to his former friend, poured everything out, then folded it away. It was not for the other man, it was for himself. And when he slid it into a drawer, he felt free. Not long after, an email arrived. A magazine wanted to publish his essay. The reward was small, but the victory immense. He called his mother, and when she heard him laugh, her voice trembled with relief. Family, he realized, was the anchor he had forgotten but never lost. Winter returned, but Michael no longer felt the cold. His apartment glowed with candlelight, filled with books and tea. On New Year's morning, he stood on his balcony, watching the sun rise gold over the skyline. "I've changed," he whispered. Months later, he was invited to share his story at an event. Nervous but steady, he spoke of betrayal, silence, healing, forgiveness. He didn't promise miracles, but he proved resilience was possible. When applause filled the room, he bowed his head and thought, "This is who I am now. This is who pain has shaped me to be." That night, walking through New York streets, he listened to music, breathed the cool air, and looked at the stars. No more bitterness, no more questions, only peace. Michael smiled. His story wasn't over. It was just beginning. New York, the city that once broke him, was now the city that witnessed his rise, his healing, his rebirth.